Welcome back. It's time for Media Watch on France 24, our daily look at the top stories in the international press and on social media. James Creedon has the lowdown. Good evening.
Good evening. How are you?
Very well, thank you. And we've got a great story to start off with today, that age-old rivalry between France and England. It was revived today with that Euro 2012 pool match.
Absolutely. And indeed, one of the top hashtags on Twitter following the match, in France in any case, was France-Angleterre. People putting up their comments and their nationalistic comments very much so. Let's just take a look at a few of them.
Did it get ugly is what I want to know.
I think they weren't really speaking to the others, but more to the converted, preaching to the converted.
Okay.
But you can definitely see elements of extreme nationalism, I would say. Let's take a look at this one if we can bring it up. Yes, Ox is going to turn those rabbity frogs inside out. Hashtag God Save the Queen.
That's some good sportsmanship.
There you go.
Suppose.
So frogs. I mean, we
He's
were
getting in the
bound.
mood.
We were bound to hear a little bit about frogs, and wherever there are frogs, there are also roast beefs, right? Because this is the old kind of slagging between France and England. The French call the English roast beef.
Yes.
Because
yes, they do.
They eat roast beef. Right. So here's one, I think, if I can pull it up. Oh no, well that's
ouch,
not it. That's
ouch.
not it. That was a bit
That
of
hurts.
unnecessary historical digging up of history. And so that's, yes, in reference to the war, of course, hashtag frogs. I do kind of think that's a bit unfair.
And
here,
there's a hashtag roast beef.
that's right, here it is. And this is actually an advertisement that was put out by the PMU in France, which are these betting shops that you have in a lot of parts of the country, well, everywhere. And here, you have the cock, which is the symbol, the French national symbol, standing on top of a roast beef, right? So there you can see clearly where they hoped that would go.
Both sides are fired up, James.
But what I did enjoy was hashtag roast beef, hashtag Joan of Arc, and hashtag Allez les Bleus. So, I mean, I suppose what else can you expect?
Time for nationalism. As long as it stays within the bounds of football,
Right.
It's not so bad.
Right.
Is it?
And I think one interesting dynamic online, and people were asking me this evening in, a very split newsroom, where do you stand as an Irish person? And indeed, Ireland they don't know who to support for a match like this, because you've got, as you can see here, hashtag,
there you are.
hashtag 800 years, right? Which is the whole historical reference, and hashtag Thierry Henry. I don't know if we can see that, but Thierry Henry, of course, is a French star player who famously handled the ball during the France-Ireland match
Yes.
for the World Cup qualifiers last year. So not a very popular man in Ireland. So I think the Irish vote, so to speak, was somewhat split as regards that. And speaking of Irish, there's a few Irish fans out. That's a photo that's doing the rounds on social media, worth pointing
All
out.
right. So a lot of commentary on the Euro
Yes.
2012. There was also today some bad press for David Cameron. It seems he simply forgot about his daughter. He left her at a pub.
Yep.
How did that happen?
Yup, whoops, right? How
it
did
was
it
an
happen?
oops moment.
Well, what happened was this was near his Chequers summer home, or the second home of the Prime Minister, the second official residence, and his daughter, by the name of Nancy, was in the pub. They were with other parents. So, it was a kind of a group of people. David Cameron thought that she had gone back with the mother, Samantha Cameron, and vice versa. So there was a big kerfuffle 20 minutes later when they realised, where's Nancy? And
I
got
guess
back
it's
in.
a classic, but when you're David Cameron, it becomes national
This
news.
is it. So, but people have been teasing him because he has famously been touted as somebody who's very chillaxed, right? Now, there was a kind of a media, media effort to portray him as somebody who's very chillaxed recently. And now they're saying, well, is he a little bit too chillaxed, maybe?
Has he gone too far?
Right? And there was this headline in the Telegraph, this is from last month, to illustrate that communications
The whole chillaxed
effort.
thing.
He's so chillaxed. There he is with a pint, and he plays karaoke
By the fire.
and tennis and forgets his daughter. And, right? But The Guardian have been quite funny. One of their blogs, this has brought out a whole series of confessions now.
From parents.
From parents and
That must be
journalists.
good.
Because one journalist for The Guardian says, well, I actually did forget my daughter at the fishmonger's once. Because, when you have 3 children, it's difficult. You don't have 6 eyes. You can only keep an eye on one of them at a
I
time.
guess it can
so
happen.
it gets complicated. And just one tweet to finish with. I suppose you can't leave a kid in the pub, says Frankie Boyle, a British comedian. She'll have to listen to the sort of things people are saying about David Cameron after he leaves. So there you go.
Another disadvantage of
Yes.
being David Cameron, I
That's
suppose.
right. And in fact, there's a blog for the Le Monde newspaper in France, big browser, and it was the top story on that in France today. So, I think both sides of the channel, people amused by it.
All right, it's a good story. Thanks very much for that,
Thanks, Sam.
James Creedon. That was Media Watch on France 24. Stay tuned. A fresh news update is coming up after a quick break.